Hello friends, I am Chevee. Welcome to my shed. How are you? I'm doing good. I got stuff today. I spent money. And I, I can't even begin to tell you how awkward that feels to spend a decent amount of money in this box. But it's stuff that I've wanted and needed and dreamed about, and so I thought I'd share with you. It's tax season, and for once in a little while, I had a bit of a tax return, so I decided to buy a couple of tools to make my life simpler for projects that I have done in the past as well as in the future. Anyway, the main thing that we're going to talk about today is I bought myself a biscuit joiner. I've always wanted a biscuit joiner. They're expensive. They're a novelty tool, essentially. If you are a woodworker, you'll probably know what I'm talking about. If you're not a woodworker, you've probably seen this tool or have thought that you knew what this tool was for and thought, oh, I have to have one of those to do, cabinets or whatever. But the fact of the matter is, what's in this box is not magic. It is not any sort of necessary tool for woodworking at all. Some would say it's a complete waste of money. And if you are working in a small garage, doing a couple of projects here and there, yeah, it is kind of a waste of money. This one was $180 on Amazon. I bought the DeWalt. There's basically two that I would consider worth choosing from. One is DeWalt and one is Porter Cable. The Porter Cable version I think is garbage, and it's more expensive than the DeWalt. After Porter Cable got bought out, most of their tools just became trash, but they've kept the high price and that Porter Cable name. I would never buy it. I've reviewed both of these in store, in person. I've felt the fences, all that sort of stuff, and yeah, I chose the DeWalt. So what is a biscuit joiner? Well, essentially, if you've never seen one, it, non-surprisingly, looks like an angle grinder. And it basically is an angle grinder with a fancy front end. It's an angle grinder that has a small 4-inch saw blade on it, and this fancy spring-loaded front end that lets you bring that saw blade in and out. I'll try to remember to put some close-up footage, but don't quote me. The concept is you take a piece of wood and you go and you cut a small half or quarter circle hole. All right. So in the box we don't get any biscuits, but I ordered biscuits. You cut a quarter circle hole, which takes one of these, which is a biscuit. This is essentially just a little piece of plywood that's shaped like a football. So you cut that hole, and then you stick this in there, and then you cut the same hole on the other piece, and then when you put them together, say I was going to put it in here, it would go in here, and then you would have another piece with the same hole, it would go in between, and now you have this biscuit in between. Here's the catch. This tool is not intended to provide any sort of strength when joining something. So if I took these two pieces of wood and I glued them together, right like that, and I tried to break it, it would not break along this seam. The fact of the matter is the glue and the glue seam is stronger than the wood that's around it. And so it would probably break somewhere else, right? So adding these little guys in here doesn't do anything to help the strength of this joint. This joint is already stronger than the surrounding wood. So that's not what this is for. Lots of people think that's the purpose, that you can strengthen joints. And yeah, you probably can moderately add some strength to certain things. And I'll be using it for that in the future, and I will show you how I use it for that in the future. But the main benefit, the main reason to own one of these, the main reason to use one of these, the main reason to get excited about having one of these is for when you're joining tabletops together. That's the best use. And I have done quite a few tabletops like this bench where I have boards butted side to side, where I have drilled pocket holes to screw them together, to anchor them together. And the concept is when you're building a tabletop, especially a wide table, like a coffee table, that you can't just easily run through a planer or run through a drum sander. You want to try to glue it so that the tops of these boards are perfectly in line with each other, so that you have very little seam, so that you don't have to do a whole bunch of work to try to get this surface flat. And that's where the biscuit joiner shines. You can put this on here, register it with this front fence, for instance, like this. I register this piece on here, I register this piece on here. With the biscuit in there, when I glue it together, these two faces will be flat. That's the main benefit. And it is wildly wonderful for that job. Amazingly wonderful. Is it $200? Is it $200 wonderful? Maybe not. If you're just doing a few things here and there, probably not. You can get away with just using a doweling jig, which I showed my doweling jig on Instagram recently. A doweling jig, like this little guy. It's essentially just a hole, so I can sight through there. There's a hole in this front piece. I can put it up on my block of wood. I can drill through there on both pieces, put a 3/8 inch dowel in there, and it does essentially the same thing. It actually, using this, does more for joint strength because you're putting a nice big chunky piece of wood in there. Whereas these little biscuits, that's just not what they do. So in the box, we have a jointer. Again, it's an angle grinder with a blade on it. These blades are usually like 4 teeth or maybe 6 teeth, something like that. Not a lot of teeth. Doesn't make a super clean hole, but that's okay. We don't care. It's between two pieces. Nice fence. This fence is one of the reasons why I wanted the DeWalt. I think it has some super fine adjustments, but it also has the ability to really lock it into place, and it's not going to give you a bad registration. Now, that being said, there's a grab handle, and if you're going to use this tool, you should never rely on that fence to hold the weight of the tool, because eventually, as you go from board to board to board to board, it probably will come out of adjustment. But hopefully not. There's a micro adjust for the 90 on here. Whatever. Nice, clearly defined center line for when you're lining up your boards. You can see exactly where you're going. Depth stop for different size biscuits. Out of the box, it's set for 20, I think. Is that 10? 10 is smaller. Yeah, that's 10. So I'm assuming that's 20. Maybe. I don't know. I'll have to play with it. Really, that's about it. It's really all the tool does. You can do vertical stabbing with the fence folded back. You can set. Oh, there's a depth adjustment for the thickness of your material, which right now it's set to less than I don't know what that is. I'm going to raise it up to 3/4 of an inch. So now when this fence is down, the distance between here and here is 3/4 of an inch, which would be like the bottom of this board if I were to stick it in there. So, all in all, I'm really excited to have it because I have done quite a bit of joining in the past the tedious way, and I didn't like it. I'm going to be building a two dressers and a desk very, very soon. That's going to need quite a bit of joinery. I'll be using this for that method as well as a non-traditional use of the tool. And then the other reason that I really wanted it was just recently I found a channel, and I will attempt to find this video, no promises, on YouTube. I was watching this guy building this credenza cabinet where he did mitered corners on a credenza, and to reinforce his miters, he used his biscuit joiner with a 45 angle jig and made spline cuts with his biscuit joiner and then put splines in. And that just blew my mind. I've never seen anybody do that. I've watched a whole lot of people build these awkward rigs for their table saws to do miter reinforcements. What I'm essentially saying is if you have two pieces of wood that are mitered, you would want to cut through this miter and put a spline in there to protect it. Well, cut through this miter. Anyway, I saw him do it with a biscuit joiner instead of his table saw with this weird jig, and I was like, that is amazing. And now I really want this because I have quite a few frames that I need to build, and this will be a very nice tool for building picture frames for splining those miters. So, tool, you get an adjustment tool in here, dust bag. I will have to report back to you on the usefulness of all of this once I've attempted to use it. I also got some biscuits. I got some other stuff in the box. One of the main things, I broke my flush trim saw recently, so I ordered a new flush trim saw. This is much different than the one that I had. This is a Japanese style. Very nice. So yeah, there's a couple more tools in there. If you like this sort of thing, me talking about tools and what I buy, I will show you more tools tomorrow. So let me know in the comments. And let me know what you think of biscuit joiners. Do you own one? Do you use it? Is it your go-to for anything? Or is it very rarely used? Please engage me in the conversation down below. Thank you for being here as always. Thank you for liking, commenting, subscribing, being amazing friends and wonderful people. And I'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, Doc, wait! I want to ask you something.
Today's random fact comes from science.howstuffworks.com. What is the temperature of dry ice? Dry ice is frozen carbon dioxide. A block of dry ice has a surface temperature of negative 109.3 degrees Fahrenheit, which is negative 78.5 degrees Celsius. Dry ice also has the very nice feature of sublimation. As it breaks down, it turns directly into carbon dioxide gas rather than a liquid.